The manhwa starts and the first thing seen is a ceiling with a fan attached to it, and a person wakes up from a really terrible sleep. As he opens his eyes, he sees something in front of him that looks like the figure of a man, and when he comes to his senses, we see our main protagonist, the teacher, having a troubled time. As things clear out, it seems like a person is sitting there, and when he gets up, the figure looks back at him. He has a bag over his head. The teacher stands up to see, and as their both eyes lock in with each other for a minute, they stare at each other, and the teacher asks who the hell he is. As he starts to realize where he is, he looks around and sees that he is in a place that's totally different from where he's supposed to live. It looks like a prison cell or something. He questions what this place is, and the bag-headed man lets him know that this place is his house. The teacher asks what he is talking about and what house he currently is in. The man glares at him, and looking at his uniform, the teacher realizes that this man is none other than a prisoner of some sort, and the teacher starts to have a panic attack, wondering what the hell is going on. He remembers that he was in a riot of some sort, and there were some agents that were given to him. But then all the agents were attacked and brutally killed in a shootout. Devils rained down from hell, and almost all the humans that were with him were killed. After that, he was left unconscious in a place with no lights for some time, and after he woke up, he was in this place. He asks if this is a prison or something like that, and the man starts to shake his head. Then he asks if this is a Fogland, and the man does the same thing as well. The teacher knew what exactly was happening. He asks if this bagman, who looks like a wolf-type man with golden and bluish eyes, had brought him here, and the man shakes his head again. He brings out a sweet potato, and he, with a confident tone, asks the teacher to teach him how to grow a sweet potato. The teacher just completely goes beyond human limitation, and he goes into a panic mode after hearing that he's here to basically do nothing but teach how to grow a crop. There is a time where he starts to aggressively remember his purpose, and he realizes that he was brought here on such a stupid purpose. He screams on how he isn't here to just help the prisoner grow some stupid sweet potatoes. He badmouths him for a time, and he grabs his head and mutters on how this is crazy and the place that he is in is not filled with humans. This is Fogland, the worst of the worst place. He knows that these people are absolutely crazy and infamous for their ruthless living condition, and he starts to get seriously worried that he's going to die. He glares at the person ahead, and he knows that he's also hiding his right arm from him. For him, it feels like a trap or something like that. He was in his own world with no fear, but suddenly he's in a prison with a weird man asking him to teach him how to grow sweet potatoes, and without any hint of regret or consideration, he dashes to the man and he tackles him. He mutters to himself that he has a lot to lose and he must act fast. As he throws down the man, he quickly grabs his neck and he starts to choke him. He reminds himself that he has everything to lose and he must not stop here. As the man completely stops moving for a second, he quickly realizes that the man's arm was not hiding. In fact, he had no right arm. For a minute, once he realizes, he feels kind of guilty, and he ties the man's arm with a tie, and he lets him know that he's sorry for using violence. He lets him know that it's really bad for them to kidnap him without any proper explanation or any proper permission. He also adds on how, if they really want to learn how to grow sweet potato, they would have to know that he doesn't teach brainless people like him lessons on how to grow agriculture. As he calms down, he starts to walk out, and he walks to the front gate. As he unlocks the door, he notices that outside he is barely able to see anything, and he starts to aggressively shake the door. Once the door opens, he instantly smells something so misty that he for a minute throws up. But what surprises him more is that when he opens the door, it leads to a land filled with absolute fog and dirtiness. It is so bizarre that he freezes for a minute, and when he saw the absolute scale of the area that he is in, he has no words. The place is filled and is so dense that the houses are right next to each other, and he quickly falls down, questioning if this is a prison or a place or something like that. As he starts to scream, from the back, the man covers his mouth and lets him know that he should not open his mouth so freely, and if he yells, things could get bad. The man lets the teacher know that he cannot leave, and he has to live here no matter what. He is not going to live in this dump no matter what. But as he struggles, from the side, a several-foot-tall man enters. He has a star in his face, and he also has this weird mask, and he stands before them, ready to attack. As the teacher kind of tears up, the teacher starts to aggressively apologize for his words that he mentioned earlier. The teacher earlier basically started to spew on how this place is trash and everyone here is brainless idiots. The huge man doesn't really bother to listen to him at all, and he makes a fist and he starts to punch him instead. In the very next second, the teacher is shirtless, and he has a big bruise on his chest and face, with a little blood flowing from his nose. The bagman lets him know that he should have shut up, but as he cries out on how everything is his fault, he screams that now his clothes are gone, and he is in a worse condition than before. Dante starts to tear up, and he screams on how he doesn't even have a hand, and he was basically trying to imprison him here. As the other man gets up, the teacher kind of gets spooked, and in the very next second, the man undresses and gives him his clothes, and the teacher had thought that maybe something else was about to happen. As he hands him over the clothes, he realizes that the prisoner that he was taking lightly is filled with scars, and his body fat is so low that it reveals his extremely athletic and trained body, which is covered with scars of all sorts, and he knew that he cannot take him lightly at all. As they both dress up, the man lets him know that right now they should look for something to eat, and as he notices himself that it is mealtime. We get to the other side of the place where the man who had struck the teacher is. He wears the teacher's suit that he had and he starts to mutter on how he looks cool. But from the side, someone calls him out for getting this uniform and outfit, and a gang approaches him. The boss holds a long knife. The fat man goes down to his knees and mutters on how there is a nerd in this village, and he basically got this suit from him. And as he starts to explain on how he was a low-life who was trying to act cool, in the very next second a sword literally goes through his head, instantly ending him. The body falls down to the floor and fills the entire floor with blood. The man then quietly gets up and remarks on how he has finally found the teacher that they were looking for. If Fogland is a devil's den, then a village in it called Tofu Village is the most devastating place that comes with this package. It is filled with creepy and scary people that almost camouflage, and almost everyone is starving like a beast. In the middle of everything, our main protagonist Dante is trapped. Now that he is supposed to be a teacher, as he is walking in the middle of them, he doesn't feel safe at all. He feels like he could be eaten by any one of those. Corpses of old people are scattered in the place. They have been in that place for so long that it's almost decayed, and only bones remain. The creepiness of this place reminds him of a jungle in a hell. Dante is absolutely scared, and he keeps on questioning about how it's filled with these people who are not there as a decoration or something. He screams why he is in this place, but obviously the other dude with blue eyes reminds him that his voice is too loud. He is distracting people and he's attracting a lot of attention now. He is pretty scared and he reminds himself that this guy is a kidnapper and he cannot really enrage him. He reminds that he's dangerous and he has to trust himself. He goes into walking to a place where a lot of these prisoners are as well, and supposedly they're here to get food for themselves. As people line up and they start to eat their food, every one of them has this quiet atmosphere that is almost deafening. He looks around and it is much more quieter and much more arranged than anything. He also notices that everyone is following a straight line, and as he looks in front of him, he notices that there is a badge and a guard is standing. Seeing this, he was super happy. He finally found a person who he could talk to, and he starts to remind himself that he must act like a civilian and be as civil as possible. His main idea is to slowly make it past the line and talk to the guard and maybe ask him about his situation and ask for help in simpler terms. As the other bagged-headed man asks for extra ham, the next turn is his, and he without any pause asks the security guard if he's a prison guard or something like that, and the prison guard answers him that he is. Dante starts to remind him that if he is a guard, then he should be able to help him. He adds that he is a teacher, and he's been imprisoned here, and he's also kidnapped by the man standing next to him. As he starts to say all this outlandish thing and basically begging him for help and guidance, the officer starts to let out this bluish figure out of his mouth, and this sends shivers down Dante's spine. He looks ahead, and the officer is basically cooked. He is on drugs of some sort, and his eyes are also blue, and without any other word, Dante knew that he is not going to get help. The food that he gets is something that not even dogs would like to eat, and as he stares to the floor, the man right next to him starts to enjoy his lunch. Dante is scared, he's fearful, and he doesn't know anything, and he reminds himself that he is screwed. Slowly he starts to tear up, and he remembers the words that the guy next to him spewed on how he should shut up and just live. He calls to the bagged-headed man and calls him student this time, and he asks if he really wanted to grow sweet potatoes, and he figures that it would be better to get this man on his side. So he basically proposes that if he would help him get out of this place, then he would teach him how to grow sweet potatoes. The man just hears his request for a minute, and the masked man with a cold voice asks if he thinks he's an idiot or something. He reminds him that he's not going to let him do that for some sweet potatoes. Dante starts to add on how if he kidnapped him for sweet potatoes only, that after teaching him how to grow sweet potatoes, he must be allowed to leave. The man reminds Dante that in order to leave this place, You need to become a supreme leader of everyone. Now hearing this, he asks if the supreme leader is a boss of this place, and the man reminds Dante that he can never do that. They keep talking more, and it seems like there is a strange philosophy of fall or ascend type to them, and they basically believe a strange ideology of leaving this place. After Dante basically has enough of his words, he is tired of persuading him, and he knew that he wasn't going to help, and he reminds himself that he's going to find help on his own and he's going to get out of this filthy place without his help. He leaves the bagged-headed man, and as he walks off, someone calls out to the teacher, and hearing the voice, all of the prisoners look to their side, and Dante basically knew that maybe a rescue team has finally arrived for him, and without hesitating, Dante starts to scream that he is here. He cries that he has been waiting for them, and as he walks towards the exit, he lets them know that he's a science teacher at a public high school. Then he looks in front of him. A tall man with slim arms and slim legs is standing with a gang of more men who are basically way taller than him, and the man passes a creepy smiles to him and lunges over and reminds him that he is happy to see the teacher. The man asks if he remembers him, and Dante is fearful, and he just reminds himself that he does remember him. Everyone starts to mutter on how this is Sixth Shoulder Brother, the infamous leader of the area nearby. As we see the terrifying and goofy-looking face of the Sixth Shoulder of Cell 0, Tower, in his pure form, everyone starts to gather, and Dante decides to remember how on the night of his disappearance, Tower was basically there, and he slaughtered a lot of people and killed a lot of prisoners, and he was right there when everyone saw his devastating and unforgivable things that he did to humans. Seeing and remembering everything, Dante basically kneels down, and he asks why he is looking for him. Tower reminds him that he is here to continue their classes, and they are really eager to learn if the teacher can make fog for them. As he brings out a few bowls of some bluish energy, a new chapter in Dante's life has just begun. As the man shows him some blue lump of some sort, everyone around him starts to mutter fog over and over again, and Dante has absolutely no idea what this really is, and he remembers how people are absolutely crazy about making this weird stuff. He asks what the fog is, and everyone starts to erupt in absolute fury, and Tower asks if he is a teacher of science, and if he even knows how to make this. So basically, that is the reason they kidnapped him, to make this blur ball thing for them. He screams that he has never really made it, and he starts to go off and reminds Tower that for specifically this lesson, one of the Sixth Shoulder had come up to him. Tower grabs him, and he starts to shove the blue lump near his face, and he is really fearful at the time. As Tower really pushes the lump to his face, everyone around Dante starts to absolutely go nuts, and Dante throws away 3 of these lumps, and just as they hit the floor, almost every prisoner present there shifts their eyes toward the blue lumps, and they quickly jump towards the 3 bowls of this bluish lump like it is their last lifeline, and they start to fight and have an absolutely brutal time there just to have a piece of it. Tower educates him that everyone here wants a piece of the blue fog. He reminds him that the blue fog is gold and the blessing of God here. As they all cried on how an old man had swallowed it, blue fog starts to resonate from his body, and in the very next second, people start to just aggressively bite the person who had it. But the man on the other hand is completely unhinged, and he is smiling like he had transcended into heaven or some sort. Tower starts to explain on how the old man will start to live in heaven regardless of his physical body being here, and Tower smiles and lets him know that if the old man survives, he will gain incredible talent, or he will just die and go to heaven. Dante starts to show up some signs, and he throws up. Now, since he has never been around this stuff, he starts to cry that he wants to go home. He begs the Sixth Shoulder that he wants to return back to his home, and he cries that he's not a scientist, and he's just a simple high school teacher who knows nothing to really help them. Tower reminds him that he saw a teacher make chemicals, and Dante cries that those people are chemistry professors, and he screams on top of his lungs that he's just a high school teacher, and he's not a person with a doctorate or something like that. Dante screams that he's not a chemistry professor. Tower asks if he's just a useless person, and as a serious atmosphere surrounds them, Dante starts to realize what he has said. In the next second, Tower brings out this extremely long knife from his throat, and he mutters that if he is a useless human, then he should be exterminated. As we get a flashback of the life that Dante had back on the surface, he remembers how his parents were absolutely disgusted when they learned that their son was about to teach a few students. They basically hated his existence, and added on how he's staining their family's name and is so useless that he basically trashed their names and respect. His own mother and even his brother added on how Dante is basically a failed human who has failed to complete his doctorate for 6 years. They sadly rejected him from everything. His father was a famous person who was well enough to make it to TV, and his mother was a doctor of law blessed with success, and his brother became a president of a big sociology group at a really young age. He, on the other hand, was just a simple guy who was worse than an animal, and all three of them really crushed him under severe pressure. That was also where Dante started to really aggressively push his limits to make it to more unique places and standpoints to increase his status and really impress his parents, who were pretty disappointed about him. So he decided to take on this unique project that was a United Nations prison event of some sort, basically an international penal project to be organized with UN agency, to manage a place like Fogland where he would teach people. After hearing this, his brother finally pops the bubble that he was trying to create, and he asks if he is doing some sort of stunt to really get his parents to his side. Dante lets his father know that he wants to teach the people of Fogland and give them an opportunity to change their lives. After saying this, his brother starts to laugh on top of his lungs and remarks on how he spilled his wine all over his shirt after hearing something so grand and so majestic. Basically, his brother berated and belittled him so much and reminded him that he is just not equal to them, and he is trying so hard to just make it near them. They rejected him, and they just let him know that he is just going into a realm of recklessness to satisfy his inferior complex. After hearing this, he gets a hallucination in which his brother has this enormous face of some sort, and his brother reminds him that he's just stupid and his ideology is proof of that. After remembering this, Dante starts to scream, and as he dodges attack after attack, he reminds himself that because of his stupid ideology and ego, he's going to die here today. He cries on how this ugly place is going to become his last place to live. As he accepts his fate and the knives go right near his throat, in the very next second, the bag-headed man jumps in with a fork, and in the very next instance, he attacks Tower's hand with precision, completely stopping him for a second. Tower drops the knife and he screams in agonizing pain, and the right arm of Tower is completely torn off his body, and the bag-headed man basically shows him how to handle a bully. As a furious fighting ignites, the man with Dante knees Tower so aggressively that his internal spinal cord literally snaps in two, and as he struggles to stand up, in the very next second, he drops like a fly. His sheer collapsing sends shivers down Dante's spine and creates a crater in the floor. As Dante looks at his savior, he finally sees the face of the bag-headed prisoner that he was tagging along and really underestimating. As all the other crowds shout on how a new shoulder has been born, everyone starts to ask for the name of the new shoulder, and the man just looks at Dante and lets him know, "Teacher, it's time to go." As he calls Dante teacher, Dante cries on how he's still alive. He glances to the person who literally saves him, and he reminds himself that this dude is extremely strong, and he asks if the sweet potato was the real reason for his axe, and he was basically asking if he had kidnapped him to force Dante to make fog just like Tower had requested him. Surprisingly, he asks if he could make fog as well, and he starts to sweat and apologize again and again, thinking that maybe he's going to kill him just like Tower himself. But the man just asks for new clothes since his were already trashed and dirty as ever. It seemed like the very first class that Dante had really made a great impression on the bagman, and this was enough to really motivate him to safeguard Dante to this point, and he basically reminded him that he didn't save him because he's a teacher. He saved him because he knows that he's going to get his new clothes from him, and as he reminded Dante that he had peed himself, he needs new clothes. After getting their new clothes, they become a little bit closer to each other, and as both of them really become more at ease, Dante, on the other hand, kind of relaxed at the bag-headed man's place, but deep down, he really wants to escape no matter what. But his hunger is killing him, and he regrets that he should have had the soup that he had earlier. From the floor, he realizes that a sweet potato is laying kind of free, and he just keeps checking if the bag-headed man is still active or maybe moving. After he realizes that he's sleeping, he decides to take the chance to eat the sweet potato all for himself. It turns out that it is all a hoax, and the man wakes up and reminds Dante that he should screw himself, and he cannot touch the sweet potato no matter what. Dante cries that he'd just take one bite, but the bagman marks his code name on it and reminds him that it's his. After much talking and manipulation, it is finally time to really explain and teach the bag-headed man on how to grow sweet potatoes, and he lets him know that in order to grow any plant on a good scale and time, the plant needs sunlight. He lets him know that if he wants to grow this sweet potato, then he needs to go to a place where there is thinner fog. Bag-headed man starts to spew on how this place doesn't really have that much fog as compared to others, and Dante starts to manipulate him and explain on how they can surely grow this near a great gate of the fortress. On the other side, Tower basically starts to get a long building-like structure implanted into him, and it is basically there to guide his bones to regrow, and with an angry tone, he asks how long it's going to take, and the doctor starts to explain on how this is going to be painful. Tower, on the other hand, starts to swear again and again, and they learn about the great mystery and blessing of fog and how it's able to strengthen bones of a person to a scale which is impossible to figure out. But he keeps remembering how his strong bones were able to break so easily. As another person joins in the conversation, Tower in the next second was killed without any mercy. As the tides change, Dante's life is not going to be easy after this. The next day, as both Dante and the one-armed man move to a different place supposedly to find a better place to grow their crop, Dante ends up asking what the name of number 182 is, and he lets him know that he's called One Arm. As they keep on joking and talking to one another, he ends up asking whether there's a specific reason that One Arm has this mask on his head. He asks if he found Fogland by an accident or something, and with a sad voice, One Arm replies that he has always been here since the day he was born. Seeing this, Dante kind of takes a pause, and One Arm fires back and reminds him that he asks too many questions. As they keep on walking, Dante mutters that he is starving and he's out of breath, and he would like to take a rest. As they stop for a minute, Dante finds that One Arm has absolutely no idea where they're going, and as he slumps down, he lets him know that either One Arm has to carry him or he feeds him the sweet potato, and One Arm himself actually collapses. Dante stands up and asks if he's joking or something, and when he checks him, One Arm is looking absolutely trashed. Cold sweat leaves his body, and his mouth and eyes are wide open. Dante starts to smack him and telling him to wake up, but as he glances to the side, he realizes that he's all alone in this ever-so-dangerous place, and he starts to cry on top of his lungs, telling him to wake up. From the sky, a man collapses and lands right near Dante with so much speed that he completely doesn't realize. As he looks back, in the very next second, the man grabs Dante's eyes and mutters to himself that he's normal. As he looks stunned for a second, the man smiles, and it looks like that Dante might be able to live another day in peace. After some while, we see a stove, and Dante throwing down food, and a woman reminds Dante that he'll probably choke if he eats like that, and she reminds him to eat slowly. As he cries on how they saved his life, they introduce themselves as Lychee and Rambutan, and he introduces himself as well. Then he mutters on how it's his first time seeing a woman. She lets him know that she has cut her hair to look more like a man, and since Tofu Village is not really kind to women, it's a must-do. As he continues to chat with them, they ask if he's new and has he not done any fog yet, and he lets them know that he's a prisoner, and he was kidnapped here, and he shares on how the man laying right there is the one who kidnapped him and has been keeping him here for a long time. Seeing this, Rambutan kind of gets stunned, and he asks if he was kidnapped into Fogland, and with a surprised tone, asks if he's the same teacher who was abducted from the operation or something. Dante asks why he knows that, and Rambutan replies that he's famous here. For a minute, they start to have a normal conversation, and as Lychee asks why One Arm is a shoulder, he replies that he is a shoulder since he defeated one of the person. As they both start to laugh, Dante actually starts to cry, realizing that normal people are also possible here. Dante asks why One Arm is like this, and Lychee replies that it's because it's an effect of limbo. So basically, it's a withdrawal from fog, since most of the people are so addicted to fog in Tofu Village that their whole life depends on fog. So after moving out from a place of fog, people will lose consciousness and their brain will go into a limbo mode. In simpler terms, it's a withdrawal from the addiction of fog. Now, Dante himself has absolutely no idea about fog, and as both Lychee and her partner look at each other, they are really surprised to hear that he has no idea about the fog. Rambutan lets him know that fog is actually a divine drug that grants talent to people, and they explain how it enhances the hidden or latent ability within someone. So in conclusion, fog is a form of a drug that helps you mutate an ability that you are most likely prone to. After saying this, Rambutan gets up and he shows his absolutely humongous and strong legs, and he reminds him that this power is something that they will use to escape this place. Dante, looking at this, knows exactly what he has to do. Hearing this, Dante kind of fumbles with his word, and both of them ask if he's interested in leaving with them. He starts to stumble with his words, and basically he is scared and wonders if this escape would even succeed, and he knows if they fail, they will die brutally. But Rambutan reminds Dante that they both never see each other, so he drills the idea of him knowing that no one is going to save him from outside, and he lets him know that fog addiction will slowly get to him, and he'll basically turn into a human that is similar to everyone in the Tofu Village, and he goes into a stand mode for a second. Rambutan basically tells him that the fog itself is all over the place, and sooner or later he will get infected. Regardless, fog is a useful drug that is so divine. It is an essential thing in this area, and since it helps people develop talent, people become addicted to it. It's like a chemical that gets into your lungs, and then it makes you crave for it more and more and more, and if a person doesn't get enough fog, they'll eventually fall into a limbo mode. Dante is fearful, and he asks if he is addicted already, and Rambutan reminds him that he might still have a chance, but as he kind of hears both of them, they just decide whether Dante is interested in leaving with them. But still, they are really hopeful to know the fact that there's a person who has seen the outside world, and both of them look at each other and they remind themselves that they have promised not to die in this land, and they cry out that they have promised to see the clear sky together one day, and as a vivid picture comes to our view, we see that it's real, they really mean their plan. As they hug, from the back, number 182 glares through their soul, and Dante ends up screaming. One arm wakes up, and Dante is fearful, questioning whether he'll attack or something, and he remembers how easily one arm can dismember anyone, and without doing anything, one arm brings out his sweet potato and asks if the coast is clear. Rambutan asks why Dante has gotten so scared all of a sudden, and seeing his face, asks why exactly he's scared, and he reminds Dante that a person who has went into a limbo state has absolutely no strength. As he makes a troubled expression, Rambutan brings out his humongous leg and he basically decides to strike him, and as he mutters whether to kill him or not, Dante screams and lets Rambutan know that there's no need for him to hit him. He goes over and with a really confident voice, Dante lets one arm know that he's going to leave this place. He explains that he has no intention of living here, and this is their time to part ways. One arm asks about it, and Dante grabs the sweet potato from his hand, and he goes out to the small kitchen area that they have. Dante places the sweet potato in a glass of water, and he educates him that the sweet potato will grow once it has sunlight reflected on it. As he tells him and lets Rambutan know that both one arm and him are done, and he asks that he'll go with them, and he needs to now chase one arm away. He lets them know that he'll help them escape and find a better future for themselves. Just like this, Rambutan ends up throwing one arm outside into the tofu area one more time, and as he falls, he looks at the sweet potato that is almost like a piece of him, and as he keeps on glaring at it, he gets a really sad flashback from his life. In this random flashback, he is sitting with a girl, and she asks whether he has ever seen a puppy or a cat. The girl looks at him and reminds him that there are animals like small and cute ones. She runs over to him. She pets him and she reminds him that she wants to raise a puppy as well. As tears begin to fall from her eyes, she cries that someday when she's outside. He keeps on stretching his hand out in vain and regret. In the other place, Dante asks on how they're going to escape this place, and in the very next second, Rambutan takes a strong stance, and he begins to pour more power into his calves. In the very next second, he jumps straight out of the roof. Dante is left completely surprised. Rambutan jumps straight into the air, and then they start to basically begin planning. The three of them start to navigate, and Lychee starts to use her own power, and she bumps her head, and her eyes start to glow, and in the next moment she throws a perfect image of the entire place that they're living in. So she has a photographic memory that lets her do incredible and complex stuff in matters of minutes. As they get the entire map recorded, their major plan is to navigate through this. As they keep on talking and doing their work, Dante ends up asking why one of the places is not marked, and he asks what this is. Both of them, both Lychee and Rambutan, end up getting shivers, and they completely ignore his request, and they start to mutter that it's time for them to leave. As Rambutan grabs both of them, they jump into the air. On the other side, a few washed-over prisoners are sitting, minding their own business, but from the sides, someone asks if they have any fog, and one arm with an absolute menacing voice asks if anyone has any fog, and they start to gang up on him, and he tells them to empty their pockets. One of the fat dudes slaps him, and they start to beat him like crazy, and one of them, a pokey with absolutely 10 eyes, mutters on how he's hungry and maybe they should eat this goofy-looking person, and they threaten him more, and as they start to really sound crazy, in the very next second, someone slaps the living crap out of him, and an absolute muscular man is shown in the very next panel. The slapped man is thrown dozens of feet, and as the man has a ruptured ear, his subordinate is blown away. Everyone's eyes widen as they see the hound in his full form. They run off, and the hound leans over to one arm, and he glares at his soul and calls him by his name, Baghead. In a flashback, we see that both Baghead and Hound share a rather interesting backstory. So when the teacher kidnapping operation was launched, Hound was the main candidate who really did a lot of things, and he was also the first person to find Dante, and as he grabbed the teacher, he decided to run through the street, muttering on how everyone is too busy fighting, and no one has ever even noticed whether the teacher is missing or not. As the Hound smiles, he felt extremely sorry for the tower idiot who was down killing all of the elite soldiers, but as he noticed that someone was chasing, One Arm was the first one to figure out the plan of Hound. As they both start to confront each other, One Arm shows Hound a sweet potato and he asks whether a sweet potato is an animal or something, and as he keeps asking questions, Hound starts to cry and mutters that his mood is absolutely terrible and he doesn't have time to waste on idiots like him. They both start to fight each other, and Hound, on the other hand, dodges a super aggressive and fast punch from One Arm, and as he delivers a rather tiny but lethal blow to his liver, the Hound is knocked out completely without any resistance, and the pain is so unbearable that he twists like a little fish, and that was how One Arm was able to walk away with Dante. Back to the present, Hound removes the bag to see One Arm's real face. When Hound finally takes off the bag from One Arm's face, he ends up seeing that One Arm is totally in a ragged position, with him almost losing his sanity, and Hound jokes on how he's making a pathetic face. One Arm, on the other hand, keeps asking if Hound has any fog with him. They count from 1 to 3, and they are basically breaking off Dante's fingers one by one. As they torture him, we see that he is completely trashed, and they manage to do their part really well. They joke on how his toe could be used as a spoon, and they just keep asking him over and over again where the teacher is. One Arm, on the other hand, lets them know that if they give him some fog, he'll tell them. This makes the entire group more angry, and they scream that maybe they should start breaking more bones, and one of the men already mutters that they have broken all of his finger already. They start wrestling him more, beating him to a pulp, basically forcing him to answer. But as the new crew members silently mutter on how they should maybe give him a fog, Hound reminds them that he is a dangerous fellow who should not be given any fog. He looks at One Arm's figure and he reminds them that if they see a skinny kid in him, then they are wrong. He replies that they should look in a more detailed version, and he reveals that the One Arm is not just skinny. He shares that his body is extremely athletic and trained to extreme levels, so much so that his body has a fat level below 5%, which is almost impossible to achieve considering the diet and everything that he goes through. As they keep on talking, Hound knew exactly why One Arm wasn't answering, because he doesn't feel pain. For a moment, they both have their own reasons, and Hound gets up and he goes over to One Arm, and he lets him know that he cannot fool him no matter how much he plays dead or weak. Hound sits down and he mutters on how earlier One Arm used a technique from a hidden martial art that is almost not found in the entire Fogland, and he mutters about a cross-martial art technique that is so strong that it can be utilized with minimum force. As One Arm stares at him for a minute, Hound bumps his fist near One Arm's shoes and he asks whether he is a soldier or something. On the other hand, the three of them approach a gate of some sort, and as they quietly walk towards it, Dante is happy to see that there's an exit finally in their time. But Rambutan grabs Dante, and they all hide behind a corner, and Rambutan reminds him that there is a watchtower, and if a watchtower like that spots them, then they can die. Lychee, on the other hand, asks whether they're going to knock on the door or something like that, but from the side, a weird-looking man mutters to them that if they get any close to the door, they'll start experiencing from them to ignore. Dante still doesn't realize that there's someone else. A man with a weird-looking head pops up, and as they all get panicked from this, Dante, on the other hand, screams that it's a sweet potato, but the man completely flips off. As he gets up, a man emerges, and he's the same man who attended Dante's class. As they all start to really feel the pressure of Rambutan's presence, they only remember that this man is a shoulder, and as a group of people dash toward them, they start placing their cones down, and they form a circle around them, preventing them from moving freely. They basically cornered them, and the man gets out and lets them know that he's the shoulder man closest to the supreme leader. As he jumps over to the teacher, he mutters that the teacher needs to come to him. Rambutan retaliates and he kicks him hard. As the weird-looking man falls down a few feet away, Rambutan reminds the weird-looking man that since he found the teacher first, he should not mess with the person who has him. The man starts to do this ballad dancing of some sort, and he starts spinning like a drill, and he shoves his head down into the ground, and he goes deep underground and starts coming down to them like a drill of some sort. In the very next second, the drill man emerges from the behind, and he starts to do his thing, but Rambutan is right on the track and he starts to fight back. But as drill man shows his weird skills, Rambutan makes sure to take his time attacking him, but as they keep on fighting, drill man uses his hidden technique and he attacks Rambutan's ass really hard, and for a minute, Rambutan is so paralyzed in pain that he goes dozens of feet away. On the other hand, Lychee ends up screaming out Rambutan's name, and as she does it, the entire colony of the men realizes that Lychee is a woman and they attack her without any break. As Dante sees this, he feels so guilty and so helpless that he starts to tear up, and he grabs rocks from his feet and he starts throwing them at the people, and he goes into a rage. He kept throwing rocks after rock. It also ends up landing on Lychee's head, and as Lychee reminds him to wake up, they both start to run, and the drill man also noticed Lychee, and seeing her figure, he also mutters on how it's a pretty lady. As they keep on going, Rambutan dashes and grabs both of them. But the drill head is much faster, and he ends up grabbing Dante, and without any pause, he uses a weird technique, and he drills deep underground, taking Dante with him to God knows where. On the other hand, the Hound kept on pressuring one arm, but as he says nothing, Hound gets frustrated, and he leaves, and he tells Slick, his new comrade, to take over. As the Hound left, Slick is pretty devastated. He is angry at Hound for not taking him seriously, also his advice, and as all the subordinates mutter on how they need to do something about this, Slick ends up starting his own revolution. He mutters on how Hound is actually an irresponsible bastard and he has no quality of being a leader. Basically, he's trying to become the number one and out-taking Hound. He started to badmouth his own leader, muttering on how he has so many flaws and he cannot be their supreme leader. He adds on how everyone here has so much potential, but not everyone is blessed by the chance to really show their colors, and since Hound is slowing everyone down. One of the men asks what Slick is talking about. He points out to his head, and just like what his friend says, he reminds everyone that his IQ lately has been increasing so much that whenever he opens his mouth, he realizes that everyone around him are stupid, and as everyone opens their mouth, they suddenly start to believe his stupid argument. He adds on how the brain of the world is in his palms and he can do whatever he wants, and almost everyone is completely blown away by this fact and the audacity of this man. He decides that he'll do something that is more intelligent and more useful in this manner. He approaches one arm, and as everyone opens their eyes, he kneels down to one arm and he calls out to him and asks whether he likes this fog that much. One arm looked at it, his eyes were dead hard onto it. On the other hand, Dante is led into a place where the drill head welcomes and beckons him, and some feared-looking men with cones on their heads stand guard, and the drill man with the weird posture lets him know that he is in their basement of the underworld. Slick of the Hound gang, who proclaims to be the wiser option of Hound, after showing a little fog to one arm, decides to chug it in his mouth, and he lets him know that if he's interested in having more fog, then he needs to be under his command and he should explain all the information that there is. Now as he starts to play around with the fog in his mouth, he swallows it, but in the very next second, one arm jumps so fast right near Slick's Adam's apple, and in the very next instance, he bites off his throat and tears out of his flesh, taking only the fog from the windpipe.